Part 4 of my tips on world building a culture. In this video, we will be continuing to add muscles to our cultures. Skeleton, starting with a vampire. Every culture has one. I assume you got the basics of your culture's version in your culture skeleton. Now, add 1 or 2 stories about it that might include something silly, like if you drop grains of rice, they need to stop and count them. So the superstitious people carry grains in their pockets. They don't have to be detailed or anything. After all, you can. Always come back later and pretty it up or change a few things. Having 1 or 2 stories in your back pocket will just be useful if your characters want to scare some kids or something. Muscle 2 we will be adding is, what does this country consider horror, and how do they convey it in stories? What's more, how do your monsters and the cultures stories fit in this idea? In my work in progress, Feathered friends the main kingdom's arch-enemy ride on dragon-like creatures, and the main kingdom lives in the frigid mountains, so most of their scary stories involve reptiles. They also believe that their enemies will eat any prisoners of war because reptiles have a habit of eating their young. So in that culture, horror stories involve reptiles and cannibals mostly. Now the third bit of muscle we will be adding to this vampire. Part of the skeleton is what caused these stories. This is the point where you decide whether or not vampires were ever or are real in this world. If so, what caused it? If not, then what inspired the stories? A disease no one understood? A crazy person doing something no one could explain? Mass hysteria? Desperation? A joke? Lost to time? No matter how you cut this cake, you're going to have an extra layer of history and cultural significance you can build off later if you choose. Next on this skeleton are the 2 muscles we will be adding to the boogeyman part of the skeleton. First, the truth. Establish whether or not this bogeyman you made up was real or the result of an unfortunate event. You can use a serial killer. That was never caught. Wild animal. Attacks that were never explained. A gas leak in an old house. A evil. Landlord trying to scare the tenants out of the property to make them move out on their own so they could buy or sell the place. If you choose to make it a real thing in your world, then use this. To establish that it is real and why, people might not believe he exists. Muscle 2, myth or lies. If the boogeyman isn't real, then go wild with how the myth affected the culture. Maybe make a regional variant like a Pokemon. Explain how the myth possibly evolved in different times in history. If you decided your boogeyman is real, then add a lie about him. Like a power he doesn't actually have, but people swear he does. Or a weakness. Say one town says he wears all black and another claims he wears the uniform of a solitaire. Go crazy. Next is dragon. Now again, we will be adding 2 muscles to this. 1, the first being historical. Texts. Every culture claims a dragon. Did something in their history. Google any country, then add dragon, and you'll get some wildly different results, including Native Americans. So what historical texts hold dragons? Did a king make a deal with one? Were they considered wild animals in historical texts? Did they cause or assist in a war? Just add some small history to your culture involving the dragon you made. The second muscle we will be adding is simply deciding if they are real or just works of fiction in your world. Or maybe they just went extinct, fled the country. It completely depends on you. With dragons out of the way, let's move on to the next part. Of the skeleton your culture's version of a werewolf. Now there are many kinds of werewolf creatures from all over the world. So making one up should include these three factors. What animal are they part? What defeats them? And what triggers them? Expand upon these three things. When adding your muscle and you're good to go. Like, if they were hyenas, which are a real myth from Africa, then females would be bigger and more aggressive than the males. Or maybe it's a were-cheetah, in which case it's probably the living embodiment of anxiety. Maybe instead of silver being their weakness, that was a cover. So they could collect silver arrows or silver bullets to melt down and get rich off of. And they're real. Weakness is lead. Maybe instead of the full moon triggering them A. Moonless night triggers their transformation. Use these to develop your werewolf thing and weather. You make them real or not, you can use them to try and explain away a cultural practice. You add in later on, like, did you know the reason people cut a cross or an X into the bottom of an artichoke before cooking them has nothing to do with actually cooking them? Back in the day, people thought fairies lived or slept in them, and that cutting a cross in the bottom of the artichoke would ward them off or make them leave if they were already in one. History is very weird, so don't be afraid to add weird cultural practices, even if fairies or werewolves or vampires don't exist in your world. Like we have middle names. Because of fairies, no joke, back. In the day, it was believed if a fairy knew your name, they essentially owned you. So middle names were invented too. Make it difficult for the fae to do that. That's also why giving out your middle name is a big no-no. They were like that since the beginning of their use. That's all for this video. See you all in part 5. Catherine out.